Kenopsia. Go back to your elementary school hallway on a Saturday afternoon, decades after you last set foot in it, and something happens that is hard to explain cleanly. The tile is the same. The water fountain still sits at the height your 9-year-old niece expected, and the place feels wrong in a way that has nothing to do with damage or decay. It is just empty, which should be a boring fact. Square footage, no people in it. Instead, it feels haunted. And I think most people who have had this experience struggle to say exactly why. There is a word for it now. Kenopsia, the eerie, forlorn atmosphere of a place that is usually full of activity but sits abandoned and silent. A school on a weekend, a stadium 3 hours after the final whistle. Here is the part I find genuinely interesting. Your brain does not store a place the way a camera stores a photo, as a fixed image of walls and floors. It stores an expectation, a version of that place populated with movement and noise and other people. Walk back in, and that expectation does not just vanish because the room is empty. It keeps running. So you are not really looking at an empty hallway. You are looking at an empty hallway with a full one still playing underneath it, like a double exposure where neither image ever fully wins. That is what kenopsia actually is once you take it apart. Not sadness about the past exactly. A prediction that outlived the thing it was predicting. And it is not limited to childhood places either. An office at midnight, still lit, still smelling faintly of coffee, with every desk empty, does the same thing to the people who work there during the day. A concert venue the morning after, chairs stacked, confetti still stuck to the floor in patches. Any space your brain learned to expect full of noise, encountered instead in total silence, produces some version of this feeling, because the mismatch is the mechanism. The specific hallway is just where you happen to notice it. Sonder. Same basic glitch aimed outward instead of inward. You are stuck in traffic, and in the next lane, there is a woman in her 40s eating almonds out of a bag, wearing this small private expression that you clearly were not meant to see. And for a second, something in you registers, not as a fact but as a fact you can feel, that she has an entire life running behind her eyes. A childhood. An argument she has replayed all week. A song that meant something to her at 15. That word is sonder, and it describes exactly this. The moment it hits you that a stranger is living a life as complicated as yours, full of people and worries you will never meet. Stated plainly, this sounds obvious. Everyone knows other people have inner lives, so why does it need a word at all? Because knowing it and feeling it are two different processes, and most of the time your attention simply cannot afford the second one. You are not built to hold 8 billion full biographies in your head at once, so almost everyone gets filed under background extras in your movie. Sonder is what happens when one of them briefly gets promoted to a main character by accident. And honestly, I do not think this is something you learn as an adult so much as something you remember. It is the same feeling you had at 7 or 8, the first time it occurred to you that your mother was a person before she was your mother, with her own bedroom and her own favorite song, and no one had explained any of it to her either. Most adults spend their whole lives quietly avoiding that feeling because it does not scale. You cannot walk around sondering every stranger on the sidewalk or you would never get anywhere. So the brain keeps the door shut most of the time and only lets it swing open for a second, maybe 3 or 4 times in a life, if you happen to be paying attention when it does. Anemoia. Different mechanism, same family of feeling. You look at a photo of a coastal town in the 1970s, somewhere you have never been and could not have been, and something in you responds like homesickness. That is anemoia, nostalgia for a time you never actually lived through. Ordinary nostalgia grieves your own missing past. Anemoia grieves someone else's, usually one that never looked quite as soft and warm in real life as it does in the photograph. Why does this even happen? Partly because your brain is very good at reading emotional atmosphere off almost nothing. A washed-out color, a certain film grain, the specific kind of quiet that existed before some machines were invented. Your nervous system reads those cues and files them under home. No personal history required, which, if you sit with it, is a little unsettling. If you can be convinced you miss a place you have never seen, then the sense that a memory is real is apparently not proof that it belongs to you. It also means the past you are grieving was never quite the past. Nobody in the 1970s was living inside a warm color grade. They had bad plumbing and worse politics and probably complained about their own decade constantly. What you are actually homesick for is the edit, not the era. Hiraeth. The Welsh word, and there is a reason it resists translation. The closest English gets is a longing for a home you cannot return to, or one that may never have existed the way you remember it. Some mix of homesickness and grief, and a bone-deep ache for a place that only lives in your head now. What makes hiraeth crueler than ordinary homesickness is this. Ordinary homesickness assumes you could fix it. Book the flight, walk through the door, problem solved. Hiraeth is what is left over after you have actually done that. You are sitting at the real kitchen table, looking at the real wallpaper, and the ache is still there. Because it was never about the building. It was about the person who used to live in it. And that person moved out without telling you where he went. Every visit back becomes a quiet search for proof he was ever real. A name carved into a desk. A note left under a mattress. And hiraeth is mostly the feeling of not finding it, is why people cry in houses they grew up in, and cannot explain the tears to anyone standing next to them. Because the person standing next to them is looking at a kitchen, and you are looking at a kitchen with a ghost sitting at the table who will not turn around. Mauerbauertraurigkeit. German gets credit for naming things nobody else bothers to name, and this one is a good example. It is the inexplicable urge to push people away, even people you love for no reason you can point to. You are mid-conversation with someone who cares about you, and out of nowhere you go quiet, or short, or you cancel a plan for no real reason, and afterward you cannot explain what happened. The best explanation I have found borrows from attachment theory. Somewhere earlier in your life, you learned, without anyone meaning to teach you, that being fully open costs something. That handing someone your whole self sometimes gets it handed back damaged, or not handed back at all. So your nervous system built a wall the way any system built to avoid pain would. The problem is the wall cannot tell time. It does not know that this person right now is not the person who hurt you. It only knows its one job, which is to go up whenever things start to feel too close. I like this reframe because it turns something that looks like a character flaw into something closer to an old piece of furniture nobody has gotten around to removing. You did not choose it, you inherited it. Usually from a moment you might not even consciously remember, and the wall will keep doing its job on autopilot until something convinces your nervous system that the job is finished. Onism. This one operates on a bigger scale than the others. It is not about a place or a person, it is about the sheer fact of having only one life, one body, a handful of cities out of thousands. A small, fixed set of people to love out of 8 billion. Every choice you make quietly closes 1,000 doors you will never open again. Onism is the frustration of being stuck at a single vantage point with no way to check what the other doors led to. It is tempting to call this regret, but it is not quite that. Regret assumes a mistake you could have avoided. Onism is more like standing at an airport departures board where every destination is somewhere you will simply never go, and understanding that this is not a phase, it is the deal. One childhood. One first best friend. One version of yourself. The other versions do not disappear, they just never get lived, sitting in a drawer somewhere labeled almost. A drawer that tends to open on its own on ordinary evenings for no reason at all. The version of you who moved to the other city. The version who stayed with the person you left. The version who kept playing the instrument you quit at 14. None of them are dead exactly. They just never got born. And there is no ritual for grieving something that never existed in the first place. So the grief just sits there, mostly unnamed, until a word like onism gives it somewhere to go. 6 words, and none of them are really about sadness in the way we usually mean it. They are about mismatches. Between what your brain expected and what is actually in front of you. Between the life you are living and the ones you were never going to get to live. If one of these names something you have been carrying around without a word for it, that is worth sitting with for a second. And if it did, the least you can do is like the video, subscribe, and let me keep digging up the rest of them.